Welcome to the new Workology Go Podcast. In just under 5 minutes, we'll get you the HR and workplace news you need before you start your day 2 times a week. Get ready, get set, and go with the new Workology Go Podcast.
Here are today's HR and workplace news headlines from the Workology Go Podcast. I'm Jessica Miller-Merrill. This podcast is sponsored by HSA Bank. Talent is becoming harder to come by, not to mention recruiting is becoming so costly. Thankfully, CEOs are not just thinking about hiring the best employees, but also retaining their workers. And retention starts with having leaders to help produce results, support, and get the most out of their teams. The way in which we engage, motivate, and lead our teams is changing. We can no longer micromanage our teams. Today's must-read resource from the Workology podcast is from Fast Company, and it's titled, The Management Formula Every Leader Needs to Know About. I wanted to talk about this article in particular because they have a nice visual chart, which I love. I'll link to the article. It's a nice 4-box chart with X and Y axes where it talks about the 4 different kinds of managers. There's hands-on and hands-off, that's the Y-axis. And then the X-axis, which is the horizontal axis, is eyes off and eyes on. Eyes off is on the right, eyes on is on the left. And so from there are 4 different managers, which we'll talk about in a minute. The article does miss an area that I think is very important, and this is trust and approachability. These are skills and qualities that managers in the modern workplace have to have. You need your people to be able to talk to you and tell you what's up. A past interview with leadership consultant Phil Wilson shares why.
There's 3 buckets that we talk about. The first one is openness or welcomeness. I talk about curb appeal, right? Are you creating the kind of physical environment and also just sort of the way you behave in a way that people feel comfortable coming to you, right? So do I look at my phone and not pay attention to you when you come to me, or do I stop and pay attention to you? So the first one's openness. The second one is understanding, which really comes down to empathy. And am I actually actively listening to you and this is in particular when you're coming to me with a concern, listening to you not with the idea that I'm trying to solve your problem, but listening to you to really prove that I understand your problem. You then can solve, but that's not the critical piece. The critical piece is, do I feel understood? Do I feel better when I leave than when I get there? The third part is the most important, really, over the long run. So you can get those first 2 buckets right. The third one is follow up and follow through, or support. And you can be open and have a great bedside manner, right? When someone comes to you, you can listen and understand. But if you agree to do things and you don't do it, over the long term, that's almost worse than sort of being unapproachable on the front end, right? Because you're really kind of lying to people. And so what we teach is that you have to get all 3 of those right. So it's your environment, your understanding, and then do you do what you say you're going to do?
Approachability is a component we need to think about when articles like this one from Fast Company are suggesting that the best managers are ones who are hands-off and eyes on. These managers are called innovative and effective managers. The other 3 manager types the article mentions include the micromanagers, this is how our fingers get cut off managers, and the roll the dice managers. I think we can all think about times maybe where we've been that type of manager. I know that I've definitely been the roll the dice manager, but we also know people still do that today. In order to be innovative and effective as a manager who is eyes on and hands off, we have to trust our employees and empower them by providing them with a safe and approachable environment for them to be able to be their best selves and for them to come to us when they need help, advice, and support.
With health savings accounts, flexible spending accounts, health reimbursement arrangements, COBRA, and commuter benefits, HSA Bank is simplifying the health account experience for over 35,000 employers and 2.7 million members alike, inspiring everyone to own their health. Learn more at hsabank.com.
And that's this episode of the Workology Go podcast, sponsored by HSA Bank. We're your go-to for HR and workplace news. This is Jessica Miller Merrill. Thank you for listening.
To learn more about the Workology Go podcast, subscribe to us on Apple, Google, and Stitcher. Our podcast is also available on Alexa and Google Home. Learn more at workology.com/Go podcast and access this episode's resources, links, and reports for more information.